guys, it's Xëna. So for today's video, I'm going to be going over on how to get started in the music industry as a producer. I literally just had this idea like 5 or 10 minutes ago when I was in the bathroom doing my makeup. So this is not planned out at all, and I just have some like notes I wrote down on my phone. So I may forget some stuff in this because this is a pretty spontaneous video that I'm doing. So hopefully you guys learn something from this and I do a good job of explaining it. So before I get into everything, I wanted to kind of go over on who I am, because a lot of people are curious as to who's Xëna and like where did she come from and stuff. So I'm a music producer, as you guys know. I started producing on a laptop electronically when I was 17. And I actually started producing on a piano when I was younger, and when I was 5 years old I was classically trained in piano. I learned how to play the piano before I could even read. So I was being musically trained over the years. When I was around 10 or 11, that's when I got good at writing down my musical pieces, which I don't have it right now. I think it's downstairs. I'll show you guys later. But I wrote out and composed pieces, piano pieces. Ever since I was young, I've always had these melodies come to me, like out of nowhere. I'll be walking somewhere and I'll have a melody playing in my head. And the only way that I could get it down was on the piano. And so I would write out, where I would record on my phone the melody. I would write it out on paper. And this is happening for years. And I composed several pieces. And then I got into high school and I was doing ballet, and I would come home from school and like I was very, the artistic person in me started coming out. I was 13 and that was the first time I heard dubstep. I'll never forget the first song that was electronic that I ever heard was the Crave You remix by Adventure Club, and I remember the dubstep part of that song. I didn't really like it that much because it was so weird and different to me, and then Skrillex came out and that was really different, and at first I didn't like it because it was just crazy, and now I love it, but at the time it was like really, I was 13 and it was like blowing my mind. But I started listening to like Suicide Sheep and a lot of experimental EDM. I lived on an island in Seattle. I was born in Seattle, born and raised there, and my house was by a forest, and so I was always in the woods walking around listening to electronic music. And so all of a sudden I started getting these visuals in my head of like music video ideas for these songs I was listening to. And so what I would do is I would film myself on this like crappy Canon camera, just like doing like things in the woods, and then I would edit in like an electronic song to it. And I used this really crappy video program at the time on my PC, and then I would go to the beach and I would do cool things at the beach and then edit music videos. So that's what I was doing in high school, was just like listening to EDM and like making music videos to their songs. I never thought like one day I would be making EDM myself. And then when I was 17 and my senior year, I originally thought I was going to go to film school because I loved making music videos and stuff like that. But that kind of didn't really go anywhere, and I was thinking, what do I want to do? And like I love music and I love like electronic music. The summer of junior year I was listening to a lot of EDM, like Keys and Crates, Odessa, Flume. There's a whole list of people I was listening to, and I was like, I think I can do this. Like this is, it looks fun. And like I went to a Keys and Crates concert, and I was like, wow, like I wonder how they make all those sounds. Like it was just so, everything was like falling into place kind of for me. And then I decided to start producing. So I was 17, I was doing my research, and I downloaded FL Studio. I was in FL Studio for 2 years until I transferred to Ableton, which I use now. I still use FL Studio sometimes, but Ableton is my main DAW of choice right now. And yeah, what my schedule was, I would come back from school and produce for hours every single day. I did that for 6 months on FL Studio, every single day producing. And even after that, for the next like 2 years, I produced every single day. So I put in my time and my work and I love doing it. It wasn't forced, like, oh, I have to produce today. It was like, I had to because it comes natural to me to produce. So that's why I do it every day. It's also like an emotional, like, stress reliever for me, which I'll get into later. But anyways, so I graduated high school planning on moving to Los Angeles. I think I was just mentally not ready to move out to Los Angeles. I was 18 and I just wasn't ready. And so my parents, we moved to Florida. So we live on Anna Maria Island. And for those next 2 years, I didn't go to community college. I didn't go to college at all. I didn't go to school. I literally stayed home in my room and produced for 2 years. I also interned at a studio. So those 2 years I was learning on my own, like at a studio. I wasn't going to like a paid school. I was kind of doing it myself. So right when I moved to Florida when I was 18, I emailed all the studios in the area. So I went on Google, I mapped like all the studios, and I emailed a bunch. And some of them answered saying they weren't looking for interns. One of them did, and he was like, do you know how to use Pro Tools? At the time, I didn't know what Pro Tools was. You know, I was like, I was a bedroom producer. Like, I was on YouTube. Like, no one said you have to know how to use Pro Tools to be an intern. Like, I didn't know that. And so I was like, no, I don't know how to use Pro Tools. And the guy was like, that's ridiculous. Like, most like producers, it's industry standard to know how to use Pro Tools. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, and that was really rude. And so F that person. And then someone answered, one of the studios answered, and he was like really nice and like, oh, you should come by sometime and we'll talk about like you interning here. And so I went with my mom, and he mentored me for the next 2 years. I would go every week, a few times a week there, and I would sit in and watch him do his sessions, recording artists, recording rappers, pop singers. And by watching and also doing it, I learned a lot. So that's why now I know how to work with artists, recording them, like vocally kind of training them because of the experience that I gained during those 2 years of watching and learning. EJ really helped me. He was mentored by Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones was his mentor, and then EJ was my mentor, and I was really lucky because a lot of studios never reached back to me. He was one of like 3 that answered back to me, and he was nice, and he didn't care that I didn't know what Pro Tools was, and he taught me and I learned. So that's a suggestion that I have for people is if you're not going to school for producing, you can do it yourself. You don't need to spend 20 grand going to some program. You don't need to spend 10 grand on something, or 30 grand, God forbid. You can do it yourself, and I'm proof of that. I did it myself. I'm a self-taught music producer from YouTube, and then I interned at a studio, so it was hands-on. But there's ways you can go about learning how to produce instead of going to a school for it. You can do it yourself. It's a little harder, and it could be maybe it could be slower, the learning process, because you don't really know what you're doing, but it is possible. You just have to go out there and go for it. There's no one holding you back. And by all means, like, you only get one life. Like, another question that people have for me is, why do I sing in Russian? So I don't know Russian. I taught myself Russian. And the reason why was because at the time, a year ago, when I started making Witch House music, I was listening to Witch House that contained Russian vocalists. And so that was what I was listening to a lot of. And it inspired me, and I was like, I wish I could sing like them. Like, it sounded cool to me. And I was like, I don't know Russian, but maybe I'll like teach myself a few phrases. And so that's how Kill You Now happened. I literally recorded those vocals on my phone, and then looked up on Google the phrases translated into Russian, and then I would listen to the translator say it on my phone, and then I would say it. And so that's how Kill You Now happened, and right now it has 105,000 plays. It kind of blew up, and I was shocked because that song, like, I don't know why people like that song, but they do. It's just funny to me because I did it on my phone, and the mixing wasn't great, but it just kind of like came out, like, and it happened, and people loved it, and that's great. In terms of the like how I started with Witch House, it was a year ago, literally exactly a year ago. It was like end of December, beginning of January. I was listening to a lot of Crystal Castles, Black Ceiling, a lot of YouTube channels that post Witch House and stuff. And at the time, I was going through a relationship that was like kind of mentally draining me, like a lot of heartbreak and confusion, a lot of feelings. Basically, I was going through a lot of feelings at the time, and I was singing about it and writing lyrics down, kind of, or poems and stuff, and I wanted to just get it out, like, you know that feeling where you need to get something out, kind of like, so you write in your diary like your feelings or something. But I wanted to sing it, but I didn't know how to sing, and I never knew that I could sing. My whole life I like messaged vocalists to like sing my lyrics for me. No one was answering, and then I was thinking, like, maybe it's meant to be that no one answered me, because maybe I'm the one that has to sing my lyrics, because I'm the only one that knows how to sing them, like with the emotion, and like it's more meaningful if I do it, but I didn't know how to sing. And so one day I was just like, I'm gonna do this, and I did. And I treat my voice as an instrument. It's the way that I edit my voice, almost as if it's a synth in its own. That's how I'm artistic with my voice, is I treat it like an instrument, you know, the way I edit it and stuff. And I, you know, reverb it a lot, and it sounds really kind of muffled. But in Witch House, the nice thing is your vocals don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be Adele, you know, you don't have to sound like Taylor Swift. That's why I love singing in Witch House, because it doesn't have to be perfect. So basically my whole Witch House career started off as a mistake. Like, it wasn't really meant to be, and I just couldn't find anyone to sing for me, and I did it myself, and Kill You Now happened, and it blew up. So really, I had no idea this was gonna happen. I just kind of went for it, and something beautiful came out of it, which is crazy. So yeah, I started doing Witch House songs, and people liked it, and I was like, what the heck? Like, people like me singing, like, this is just weird to me, like, this is crazy. And so yeah, like, there's YouTube channels that are posting my music, I don't even know it, posting like my Witch House songs, and I'm just like, I find it, I'm like, what? But yeah, so that's another lesson, is that you'll never know if you don't try. Like, you have to try, and you have to get over that fear of, like, you know, denial or being rejected. You just have to do it, because you'll never know. And for the rest of your life, you'll be wondering, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I had done this. So it's better to do it, so you don't have to live thinking like, oh, I wish I had done that, you know? So that's how I started doing Witch House. Was I was emotional, and I needed to sing, even though I didn't think I could, and this happened. So, what else? So I'm just gonna be answering questions on my phone that people have asked me. What made you start producing? I was inspired by other artists. Like, I went to a Keys and Crates concert, like I said, and I was really inspired, and I wondered, like, how did they do that? And I knew I could do it, because I learned piano, and I was always writing out melodies. I was literally making songs, but like the hard way, like the old-fashioned way, like writing out notes and stuff. So if I was doing that, I knew like I could do it on a computer. So that's how that happened. Am I an introvert or an extrovert? I am definitely an introvert. I am shy when you first meet me, but of course, like, when I'm around my friends who I know well, like, I'm not as shy. What else is here? Any recommended decent programs to use as an introduction to producing? So this is going to be a nice conversation. Honestly, it doesn't matter what program you're using, it's what you make of it. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's true. Like, there's people making hit songs right now that are in the top 50 using Reason, using Cubase, using Logic, using, you know, anything really. Like, it doesn't matter what program you use, it's how you make the music, really, is what it comes down to. But if for people who, usually what I suggest to people is if you're making EDM, if you're making dubstep, electronic music, I would say Ableton. It's a little easier to make EDM in Ableton than FL Studio, and I have experience with that because I was making EDM for 2 years in FL Studio, and then when I started doing it in Ableton, it was easier for me. So I would suggest that if you're doing hip-hop beats, rap beats, trap, FL Studio is great for that. I actually find that the 808s in FL Studio are better than in Ableton. Like, for some reason they sound like fatter and crispier in FL Studio, and other people have told me that. And FL Studio 20 has this new feature called pre-computed effects. So literally you can add distortion straight to the sample. You don't have to like put a plugin on it. It's like built into the sample. You add distortion. It's in FL Studio 20. It's great. But yeah, I love FL Studio and I love Ableton like equally. I would say maybe Ableton a little bit more because I am an EDM producer. I'm making dubstep. I'm making these crazy EDM sounds, so it's easier in Ableton. That's all I have to really say. But really, it doesn't matter what program you use, it's what you make of it. Someone said, I know you don't have a genre, but what is your favorite to produce? So as most of you know, I categorize myself as no genre. I make literally every genre, and I cannot help it because, like, that's just how I am. I didn't choose, oh, I can make every genre. No, like, it literally is me to not, I cannot stick to a genre. I can't. Like, I'm doing witch house, I'm doing EDM, hip-hop beats, dark wave, like, dubstep, everything. Like, I cannot stick to one genre. But if I had to choose one of my favorites would be future bass. I love future bass. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite to produce. So yeah, future bass. What do you do when you have writer's block? So with writer's block, honestly, I don't really get it a lot, but when I do, I just leave my computer. Like, I just go and take a walk. You have to get out, hang out with friends. Sometimes you just need to be inspired. Like, you'll be out somewhere partying and you'll hear a song, and then that will inspire you, or you'll be walking outside and someone will drive by and you'll hear like a little bit of a song they're listening to, and that will inspire you. Like, you just have to get out. So when you feel like you cannot produce anything and nothing sounds good, just close your computer and leave the house, literally, and go out and have experiences. What keeps you motivated? What keeps me motivated is this is my life. Producing is my life. Like, there's really nothing else. I never went to university, so I have nothing to back me up, and like, this has to work because there's nothing else for me. Like, there's nothing that interests me other than music. Actually, I take that back. When I was younger, in 4th grade, I wanted to be an ornithologist. I was obsessed with birds. I used to have a huge obsession with birds and bird sounds, and it's funny because I think that correlates to why I love music and why I have such a good ear for sound, is because when I was in 4th grade and 3rd grade, I was always in the woods, and I had a book of bird calls, and I would, like, whenever I heard a bird call, I would try to find it in the book. So I memorized all these bird sounds, and even to this day, like, when I go back to Seattle, because that's where I did all this, I recognize all the bird sounds. Like, even from miles away, my ear is really sensitive to like frequencies, so I can hear something that other people really can't hear. Like, there is a type of birds called like grouse, and like grouse, they have like a low rumbling like sound that they make, like especially in mating season, like up in the mountains. This is so random, but I can hear that, and like it's harder for other people to hear that, but I can. So yeah, I had an obsession with birds. I wanted to go to Cornell University in New York to be an ornithologist, and I had a huge obsession with birds. I loved them.
Birds have a cycle of life, and we should be more aware about birds' life. Birds have 5 ways of communicating.
Because I was so good at recognizing bird calls, that's why I'm good with sound, is because of that. So I think that's just really random and really funny. But I love nature. I grew up literally in the woods. Like, I was always hiking in the mountains. I lived on Bainbridge Island, which is a 30-minute boat ride from Seattle, And if you go like an hour out to like the west side of the coast, the forests are so like crazy beautiful. Twilight was filmed in Forks, Washington, which is like an hour out from where I used to live. So I know that area very well, like where vampires are, and like the woods are really thick and crazy and dark and like beautiful. I literally grew up walking those woods that you see in Twilight and like all that. Like that was my life. I spent a lot of time alone too, just walking the woods with my dog. My dog was my best friend. And so I have a lot of time alone, and I think that's why I'm so introverted. And I spent a lot of time listening to sounds, because when you're in the woods and you're alone, you hear things from farther away because there's not a lot really going on. And so I was able to recognize certain sounds, like when there's a deer like walking, or when there's a deer like scratching its antlers on a tree, like I would know what that sounds like, or certain bird calls or certain bird sounds for certain things, like whether it's mating season or whether they're sad or they're calling for their like children. Like this is so random, but I knew all of these because I spent so much time in the woods. So yeah, I'm definitely an environmentalist. I love nature, I love trees, I love the woods, and that's my goal, is to save enough money to one day be able to buy a cabin in the woods. And that's what I want to do, is I want to spend my summers in the mountains. That's like my dream, literally, is to have a cabin, and just produce music. That's also why my music videos are very nature related. It's because that's who I am. Like that's how I grew up, as a wild child in the woods. So that's why it's inspired me in all my music videos to be like in a, wooded area, is because that's how I grew up. That's what I know, and I love it. So that's why my music videos are in the woods. Someone asked me, what is your dream? My dream, I have a lot of dreams, but one of them is one day I want to perform at a music festival. That's what I want to do. I want to perform at a music festival one day, and if I do that, that's great, and if I don't, I'm going to keep working hard towards that. Like, if I'm 50 and I still haven't performed at a music festival, I will still chug on until the day I die. Like, I want to perform at a festival. It could be Ultra, it could be Sunset Music Festival, it could be EDC, but that's my dream. So one day I will I'm working towards that, and one day I will do that. What's been your journey as a producer? I think we've kind of gone over that. I started producing on a piano when I was 5, before I could read. At 10, I was composing pieces. 17, I started in FL Studio, and here I am 20 in Ableton. And yeah, another thing I want to go over is laptops, computers, the more technical side of things. So once you have your chosen DAW of choice, whether it's FL Studio, Ableton, Logic, whatever it is, I honestly prefer a laptop. I like using laptops because I can be in the plane, in the airport, I can be in a coffee shop making music. I can be making music anywhere, okay? The only problem about having a desktop interface is that it's in your room and you cannot leave with it. So that's why, personally, I think you should get a laptop. What type of laptop? I love Macs. You can use PCs. I started off in a PC because at the time FL Studio did not have its like Mac version. It was only in PC. So I had a PC, and then it died on me, and then I got a laptop. And then I boot camped it. So if you don't know what boot camp is, you split your hard drive in half. So half of it is PC mode, half of it is in Mac mode. I did that literally for 2 years, boot camp, and it's all right. It's just a pain because you literally have to shut down your computer and then reopen it in PC mode or whatever you want, and it's just annoying. So finally, FL Studio came out with a version where it's open in Mac, and so and I got a new Mac. This is the latest one where it has the touch bar, and this is not boot camped, so it's all partitioned in Mac, and I have my FL Studio in here, and I have my Ableton. And then another thing you should think about is getting an external hard drive, because if all of your music is on your computer and God forbid someone steals it or it breaks down, you lose all of that unless it's backed up in some cloud or something. But most people don't do that. And so that's why you should get a hard drive. Now there's different companies. This is a Lacy, and I have it connected to my laptop cover with Velcro, and that's nice because you don't have to be like carrying your hard drive and your laptop everywhere and then it's gonna break. And yeah, so that's why I have it connected. Overall, what I would say is after you choose your DAW, practice every single day. Practice makes perfect. And I know you hear that all the time, but it's true. The more practice, the better you're gonna get. The more experience you're gonna get. That's your way out, is producing. So yeah, practice every day. Watch YouTube tutorials. I learned, there's this one YouTube guy called busyworksbeats.com. I learned FL Studio from him, like, and I owe him like that, and I have to email him actually one day and say thank you, because he really did help me with FL Studio and producing when I was first starting out 2 years ago. So yeah, practice every single day. Collaborate with other people. When you collab with someone else, it kind of takes you out of your comfort zone, because you have to like be like social. First of all, get out of your room. Like, I was a bedroom producer for 2 years, and then like when I started like socializing with people, like you get out of your shell and then you realize what other people like, and then like you have to agree on something when you're collabing on something on someone, you know? So that makes you learn things too. So collaborate with people, with artists. A lot of people think that I started off making Little Peep type beats. I actually started off making EDM. If you go on my SoundCloud, my first song is a dubstep song. So I was making EDM because that's what was inspiring me. I didn't really get into the Little Peep stuff until a year ago, and that's when I started doing Witch House, was a year ago. And I started working with artists on SoundCloud. And as like they kind of grew, like I grew with them because I was producing for them and mixing their vocals and like helping their careers. So we kind of grew together. And one of them just recently got signed, which is great. And yeah, so like, you know, we're all helping each other here. So collaborating with people is beneficial for both of you because you both grow together and, you know, things happen. So that's great. Collaborate with people, definitely. Practice. Put your music out there. Don't be afraid of rejection and all that. It took me a year to put one song out on my SoundCloud. Like I just thought it sounded so horribly mixed and I didn't think I was ready. And it took me a long time to post something on my SoundCloud, and then I finally did, and then I started posting more stuff on there. So I would say don't be afraid. You have to, like, I feel like the time that you're scared is when you know you have to jump. Like when you're scared, you know that's the time. And like with Witch House, if I never, ever, ever got over my fear of singing, Kill You Now would not have happened. Most of my music would never have happened. I wouldn't even be talking about this. But I gave it like a leap of faith. I tried it. And then now my song is blowing up and people love that song. I get messages from people from Poland, Hungary, like all these European countries saying like they love my song. Like this one guy messaged me and he literally said that for the past few days on his way to work, he would blast my song Kill You Now in his car. And that almost brought like tears to my eyes because I was like, this person I don't even know somewhere in the world is listening to my song on his way to work, you know, like it's just like mind-blowing to me. So I'm here to help you guys. Okay, this lighting is so horrible. I'm so sorry. I'm here to help you guys just get out of your comfort zone. And it's okay to try new things because I did as a mistake and it turned out to be something great. And, you know, just keep on fighting for what you want because, like, this is all that there is for me. I'm not going to go to university. Maybe I will one day, but right now, no, I don't want to do that. There's nothing really that interests me other than music. That's what I want to do, and that's how I'm going to make my living. And so I have to hustle, and you have to hustle, you have to sacrifice, because in life, like, to get what you want, sometimes you have to sacrifice. So I think that's a wrap for this video. It was really spontaneous. Like, literally, I did not plan for this. I read some questions that people asked me in the past about me, and I kind of went over, like, the whole producer journey kind of for me, and then, like, what could work for you. Again, it doesn't matter what program you use, it's what you make of it. Practice every single day, collaborate with people, put your music out there, and just don't be afraid to, like, take over the world, because we only have one life. And, like, you know, I read this quote the other day, and this guy was saying, people act and live their life as if we are gonna come back again, but what if we come back as a rock? Or what if we come back as a cat or a squirrel or, like, a grain of sand? Like, that's not as fun as being human, because, like, you know, we're, like, full of emotions and we're very intelligent. Like, so live your life as if you're not going to come back as a human again, or who you are. You know, you want to make the most of it while we are who we are, you know what I mean? And that's how I try to live my life. So I'm going for it. But anyways, so I think that's a wrap for the video, and I hope you learned something. A lot of people are always, like, curious about me and, like, my story. So this is my story, and this is Xëna. So if you ever have questions or you want to talk to me about something, you can DM me on Instagram, you can email me, I'll have that down below. You can also buy beats from me on my TRAKTRAIN and my BEATSTARS. So that's something that I'm doing to help support myself. But yeah, so I hope you learned a little something from this. And sorry, the lighting was, like, really bad. But I literally have my phone, like, leaning up against my window. So yeah. Bye guys. I hope you have a good day, and subscribe to my channel to see more videos.